Welcome back, Messies. We are so excited today for the conversation that lives in that space where success and struggle intersect. Because sometimes the most polished, successful lives are built on stories that haven't been fully seen yet. And what happens when those stories finally come into the light? That can change everything. This episode is rooted deeply in our unperfect level up competency, unapologetically love your authentic self. Not the curated version, not the version that feels acceptable or easy to share, but the full, honest, sometimes messy truth of who you are and what you've lived through. I'm so excited for our guest today. Joining us is Serena Maston, the founder of Pulse Marketing Inc., an award-winning marketing agency and the visionary behind Heart of Creative. Serena is also an author and speaker whose memoir, Exposed, You Can't Heal What You... Wait, let me say that again. Exposed, You Can't Heal When You Hide, shares her powerful journey through abuse, addiction, and personal loss, and the path that she's walked to not only heal, but lead, create, and build a life on the other side of. As a single mom, entrepreneur, and advocate for healing, Serena brings a perspective that is both deeply human and incredibly empowering. Serena, welcome to Becoming is Messy.
Thank you so much for having me. The title of the podcast is like my middle name, so it's it's an
I think we're gonna have a good chat.
Yeah.
Happy to have you here. Help us set the stage for our conversation today. And, and I'll just to share with our guests that you and I had an earlier conversation this week. And so I ask this question to start off every episode, but I feel for you, this one is extra special because right now the question is, to help us set the stage of the current season that you're in and what a season you are in. So let's just dive right in and give a little context to your current season.
So the current season is on February 20th. My fiance and I we woke up early, we did boot camp together. And he was just glowing and just energized through the entire morning. When we got back, he kissed me on the cheek. I had gotten a phone call and he threw his swim trunks on and went to go swim a few laps. And I started working and I recognized that it seemed like he was gone a little longer than he typically is. But I thought maybe he got a phone call, and he was taking it outside. And the police knocked at my door. And the moment they knocked at my door, I just started running. I started running to the community pool. And I saw my fiance laying on the side of the pool. The landscaper had walked by, saw him doing push-ups, saw him swimming laps, and then when he walked by again, Thomas was floating. And so he pulled Thomas out of the pool. He tried to administer CPR, but it was too late. He was unresponsive. And so, that has been the season that I'm currently in. And it is a heart-wrenching season is the best way to describe it.
Oh, well, we have so much grace for you here on the show and are so grateful that you are joining us today to share your story. It's such an important one, and your pain and it being able to be vulnerable with sharing that with our listeners, I think is going to be very impactful. Help walk us back a little bit. Every becoming story has its own messy path. And
Yes.
So here you find yourself in this deep season of grief, but there's some other twists and turns in your background that I believe are so critical to walk us through and how you even got to this stage.
Yes. So, friends and family have teased me that I am the modern day Job. which is not a good joke when you're actually that person.
Mhm.
But I started my life in witness protection at the age of 5. My biological father was the leader of a satanic cult, and he sexually abused me and taking my innocence before the age of 5. And because the cult was so controlling, my mom couldn't get out. So there was video cameras, there was people following us a lot of the time. And so when she finally did get out and we were taken away, she had to earn her rights back as a parent as I started through the foster system. And so I went to about 9 different foster homes and was reunited with my mom right before the age of 11. So by this point, I had just been exposed to so many different cultures, so many different environments, cruel and unusual punishments that I've never experienced before. And it was a lot. And so by the time I hit my teenage years, I I was just rebellious. And my right before my 16th birthday, I just decided to tell my mom that I was leaving. And I wish that I was smarter at that time, but we all do things when we're young that we look back at.
True.
And so, because of that decision, I lived on the streets. I slept in abandoned houses, park benches, and I did enroll myself back into high school. So, not only did I enroll myself into high school while I was jumping around, I also had 3 jobs. And so I would take the public transportation to each job, then find a place near the school. And then I would sleep near the school. And when the doors or the gates opened in the morning, I would run in and take a shower in the girls' locker room and just pretend I was a normal kid. And so that obviously, being on the streets, living that lifestyle, led me to addiction, which was at the time my survival mechanism because I was, afraid to sleep. I was afraid of some of the situations that I had put myself in. But finally, when I graduated high school, I put that all behind me. I stopped everything and I started to shift my life forward and climb the corporate ladder. And so I did. By the age of 23, I bought my first house. Um, yeah. So,
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have to pause there for a second and just give us a little context of going from graduating and, thinking of you as this homeless teenager
yes.
struggling with addiction. What did it look like to get from there to having a corporate job and being able to buy a house? What was that little gap look like?
So it started where I started to recognize that there's individuals in my life that aspired to be like. And so it gave me this unrelenting determination to prove everyone wrong, that I was not going to be a statistic, that I was going to achieve great things, and that my childhood would not define my future. And so that's where that shift came from. And it was a lot of counseling, a lot of personal development, tons of reading and learning about self discovery, self awareness. But in that process, my goal was to become fully independent. And so that's,
Wow, that is incredible. Yeah, I feel like some of the things that you're referencing sound like things that I've referenced in my own healing journey. Guests on here have referenced, no, that start of that inner voice is what we say, or some people say it's God talking to them. Some people say it's a deeper knowing, but just something that's like pushing you to be the better version of yourself. And but then taking the steps of therapy and curiosity and gaining knowledge through reading. The fact that that you were doing those things so young. For me, those things really unlocked around 30.
Yeah.
So to vision you at like 19 years old doing those things is just incredible to how strong that inner wisdom is within you to push you forward into needing to be resilient.
And I think when you leave your home at 5 years old, it automatically gives you this feeling of survival. Like I have to survive. And so even from such a young age, my determination really initially started with wanting to get back with my mom and doing everything that I could to, reunite with her. And then once that determination shifted and I was rebellious, then I had to like gain a new clarity and refocus, on bigger goals. And so made a lot of mistakes along the way. You know, I I did get pregnant at 20 and had
Mhm.
my son at 21. And his father at the time wanted nothing to do with us. And so it was just me and my little guy, and we were going to conquer the world together. From there, there was my first marriage, which was tumultuous. I really wanted to create like this perfect life for my son. And I thought that that's what I needed to do in order to
Yeah.
create that. And I learned through trial and error that that was not the right decision. But then I met Kyle, and Kyle was charismatic. He was magnetic. He just had this personality where everyone just kind of navigated towards him. And I fell in love. And, he just inspired me in so many ways. And we were together about 2 years before we got married. And right when we got back from our honeymoon, I was in my office. I was a VP of marketing at the time. This is when I was like 28, 29. And everyone had left for lunch, but I had to work through my lunch because I just got back from my honeymoon. So I was kind of in the executive suite by myself, and someone had opened the reception door and walked in, and she stood there and she stared at me. And I didn't really understand what was happening in that moment, but I'd said, yes, like, how could I help you? And she came in my office, shut the door behind her, and sat down. And she said that she had been with my husband for over a year. And
My.
and that
Oh, so,
so
wow.
in that moment though, it went from having him on this pedestal and finally falling in love and seeing this version of my life unfold. And in reality, I was met with just complete chaos. And she described my house, she described my kids. So in addition to all of that, she had sent me over 300 emails, text messages between the two of them.
Wow. I mean, this is blindsiding. This is traumatic. This is heartbreaking. All
of the
things
things.
just kind of handed to you in this moment. Which
Yes.
is, oh gosh, that's so much on you.
But it sets the stage for understanding what I went through for the next 10 years because I stayed married to him. My first initial thought was I was ashamed, embarrassed. I'd just gotten married. How am I going to share this with anyone? Because there was too many layers, right? And
Right.
I didn't want this to impact the children. Like, he had a child. I had 2 children by this point. We just blended our family. Like, I was very overwhelmed with the scenario. And so we went to, marriage boot camp. We went to therapy, all of the things that you would do in order to heal and get past something that traumatic. And we did. And I did heal. I did forgive. And I was able to see our marriage blossoming. And just a few years later, I found out about another woman. And so all of that progress, all of that healing, it was like I had to start over again. And by this point, I'd still kept all of these secrets. I kept hiding everything that was happening because by this point I had the agency. I was trying to work with clients. Kyle had come in and worked in the agency. So it was like a lot more dynamics by this point. And instead of sharing my story, I protected him, tried to protect his image, tried to protect our marriage, our kids. And in that, it broke me down physically. I started having health issues. My body was breaking down. And so by the time I found the courage to leave my husband in October of 2019, by March of 2020, he committed suicide.
Wow. Gosh. Oh, it just, I just want to pause there. That is just so shocking
Yeah.
to hear everything else you had been through and then to have him end things in that way. To me, it just feels like what that would do to your ability to have closure with that experience, and your own healing just changes that dynamic so much. And so for you, what did that shift do to you and how you healed past that?
So a lot of people say like the calm after the storm. Well, Kyle was magnetic and he had so much personality and character and charisma, but it also brought so much chaos. And so it did feel like when he took his life that it was almost like the calm after the storm. Not that the pain didn't hurt any less. It still was devastating and heart-wrenching, and I had to work through those emotions. But it was a different experience. And now experiencing the loss of my fiance, who I worked so hard to rebuild, to heal that little girl, that little 5-year-old girl, to heal the young woman that had been exposed to all of these scenarios, and finally was at a place where I felt like I'd finally found my happy ending. Losing my fiance, Thomas, that felt like I lost my joy. And so the difference in the experiences, they both hurt, but in different ways.
Of course. So I love the name of your book. I think that your book says it all of very much getting to what we're talking about, of you shifting from keeping it all inside to starting to open up and talk about things. You can't heal when you hide.
Yes.
So walk us through, how did you move from somebody that wasn't opening up at all to getting to that space where you were able to share in a book your experience?
So it started right after Kyle committed suicide, because everyone was oblivious to why this would happen. And it was because I had hid so many things. And I'd tried to protect his image and his status and his character. And I recognized that my pattern of hiding started when I was a little girl. And I never recognized until that moment that my hiding was actually being projected onto hiding things that other people were doing. And when I started to write, I was writing as a part of my healing process. And during each chapter, I recognized the pattern. is that from the age of 5, my mom would find me hiding in the closet, um, all the way to when I found out about the second woman. I was hiding in the closet as a grown woman. So it was clear that not only
Yeah.
will I hide literally or physically, but emotionally, I will shut down and hide. And so I knew that the only way to get past that was to face it and to just, with courage, go towards sharing my story. And that's the way that
How did that feel? How did that feel at first as you started actually
terrifying.
sharing? What was that? Terrifying. Yes, terrifying. And then how did it snowball from
So
there?
your first initial thoughts are like you're worried about judgment. I was worried about losing my clients because I already had a business, right? And so you have all of these you know self-deprecating thoughts that always kind of lead us back to where it's comfortable. And I knew that I had to keep putting myself in uncomfortable situations so that I could get past it. And so then it started to feel weightless.
I love the word weightless, right? I think that the feeling of just ease and floating that comes when you release secrets and shame is just so freeing. When you were in that weightless space and writing and opening up your story, were there any other things that you've uncovered as you look back at your time with Kyle that were other red flags that had kind of gone unnoticed or
1,000,000.
nothing? A million, yeah. At first, I was like, really none? Oh my gosh! Like, I mean, so a million.
Yeah.
Because when you use the phrasing about him, how he used to have him on a pedestal,
Yes.
I find that so many of us that have been in narcissistic or abusive or toxic, you name it, shitty relationships,
Yeah.
we put people on a pedestal. And I've come to believe that if somebody's on a pedestal, then something's wrong and there's something to dig in there because everybody's messy and imperfect. And
Yeah.
that's the humanness of it. And so, as you were able to look back through a different lens now of strength, what were some of those red flags that you either overlooked or missed?
Well, some of it was just a lack of understanding, a lack of knowing what mental health issues he was struggling with. Because the suicide, it was common throughout my marriage. Any time that something would happen that wouldn't go his way, he would revert back into saying he was going to take his life. And so throughout the 10 years of marriage, there was a lot of me trying to save him. Right. So that in itself is a
Yes, yeah.
huge red flag.
Yeah.
Not understanding his mental health, conditions and not learning about them soon enough. That was huge. The other things is because at such a young age, I was exposed to sexual abuse. One of the beliefs that I recognized that I had all the way through that period was that I had to earn love, that I had to sacrifice myself in order to earn love, earn approval, and have love in my life, that I wasn't worthy just as I was. And so in really looking back, I saw the ripple effect of how all the way from childhood and being exposed to that, how that then interpreted into my behaviors and my negative patterns as an adult.
Wow. I feel like for listeners, I just think that hearing some of those red flags are so powerful for folks who may find themselves in the middle of a dynamic like this. And you just have these moments where you start questioning yourself versus the other
Yes,
person because you
100%.
explain away all those things that you're bringing up. You back then probably, just kind of talked yourself out of because the person was on the pedestal, but your gut knows. And so, for anybody listening, if you're having those kind of questions about your own worth, if people are threatening harm to themselves in trying to get you to change behavior, if people are making you feel less than in some way, those are all red flags that your gut is trying to help you learn at least to pay attention to.
Yes. And I recognized during that process and during my marriage, I had taken notes, I had written in journals. And when I was writing the book, I had to like look back and see some of the things I'd written down. And I recognized that this pattern started when we first met. It was just that you're in this whirlwind of newness and excitement that you do overlook those things. You're just not fully aware of them. And then when I forgave after the first woman, I thought, I'm the best wife ever. We're going to have a great marriage now. Like I thought that was what we needed, is that he just needed this big, scary moment for us to get on the right track and create a healthy, amazing marriage. And it's those things that we tell ourselves. And because I was hiding, I wasn't really sharing these things with anyone else for them to give me insight. And that is a huge red flag, is when you realize that you can't share because you're protecting someone else, that then actually is hurting them more, and it's hurting you in the long run.
Yes. Oh, I saw a quote. I'm going to botch it, but essentially it said, that when you speak your truth and when you do authentically what's best for you in any given moment, that you're also doing what's best for everybody else. And I find that so true. It's a lot of times we trade that in the moment for momentary protection and comfort of somebody else. We're in the long run, we're then becoming an enabler of such awful behavior. And so as I look at you and I hear the two different stories of your loss and pain between your first and second loss with the two different men, I think of you as the old you being in kind of that split life where there's who you show to the outside world, and then there's the true you.
Yes.
Right? Whereas I feel like now you're just wholly you.
100%.
And as holy Serena, what has life looked like as holy you? What are some differences that you can sense now from who you used to be when you hid so much?
Physically, you could see the difference. That was such a eye-opener for me, is looking at photos. Even I saw that I had excessive inflammation, I had health issues. Physically, you could see that. And literally within a few weeks after leaving Kyle, before he even took his life, it was like I was glowing. I just was a completely different person. So getting out of the environment, number one, allowed my body to start healing, even before my mind fully processed everything. And during this process of writing the book, that's where a lot of my healing really came into play, is because when you're writing a memoir, you cannot write it from a place of wisdom. You have to write it from a place that you were in that moment and bring everyone there with you. And so when you experience that moment again and again and you're describing it, your body actually relives that trauma. And then when you close that chapter, it's almost like it's closed for good. Like, it was such a beautiful and cathartic experience. Although it was excruciating, it was also cathartic and beautiful. And what was very sweet is I met Thomas when I was writing the last few chapters. And Thomas came with me to the photo shoot for the cover.
Wow.
And I was afraid to use my face on the cover. And we came up with this idea that it would be my reflection instead of
I love that.
head on. So Thomas was holding the mirror. And
that's beautiful.
And so when you look at the cover of my book, Thomas is behind the mirror. And
Mm.
it's just, even though it's been a heart-wrenching few weeks going through this loss, it I still feel like I haven't lost myself. Whereas the old
Mhm.
version was pretending to be strong, pretending to have it all together. And I'm no longer pretending.
That is incredible. I keep thinking that, unfortunately, tragedy in your story is portraying such an important part of life that when you do this work to heal your inner self and fully love yourself, it doesn't mean that hard things aren't going to happen to you still. If the things of life are
100%.
still going to keep happening, right?
Yeah.
Serena and I have both joked with each other that we've had moments in our life when we thought, I've had enough. We've arrived. We're done with hardship, and we're
Here.
graduated from that,
Yeah.
and life is going to be easy. Yeah, and sadly, that's just not how life
It's
works.
not.
However, even losing somebody that's such a deep love as Thomas was to you, it doesn't break you when you've healed and love yourself. And so, for you in this season now, in your middle of grief, to be able to already be opening up to that story, what a difference from the person that didn't used to share
Everything.
to now in the middle of grief, just open up your home and welcome us in to be able to talk about it. So, from this place of wholeness, in the middle of grief, what does kind of the next steps look like for you? What does going forward day to day look like in this kind of unfolding season?
So I would say the biggest things are giving myself grace, being patient with the healing process. We have a tendency to rush clarity because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. But if you sit in it and you really feel it and you push through it, the unanswered questions are always going to be there. But what's going to be a lot more clear to you is the path forward. And so I can get hung up looking behind me, but my goal is really to inspire and empower others through my story. And the only way to do that is to share my process as I'm going through it.
Well, we are so glad that you are here to do that with us. It's an honor. We get to do another section right now that is called Rapid Reel. Just a few kind of quick questions, no overthinking, just whatever comes to mind. The first one for you is, what does authenticity now feel like in your body?
It's a good question. It feels like relief.
Yes, I can breathe out. Yeah, just even
Yes.
hearing that. Yes, it's the best. You mentioned, that you were a big reader, curious teenager trying to gain knowledge in your early adult years. Is there a book or two that comes to mind that really stood out to you?
So many. There's obviously Brene Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection.
Yep.
And then Oprah actually did a book, and I believe it was called Why Me? And that just blew my mind.
Yes, why me, or what happened?
What
to you?
happened to you?
Yes, because I feel like I think it's challenging why me.
It
right?
is
It's kind of
challenging the why me.
Yes, it's a huge
What's
one.
wrong with you?
I love both of those.
Yes.
Yes. It's kind
Those
of what happened to
two,
you in shifting.
yeah,
Huge.
huge life changing books.
What is something that helps you ground yourself daily? Do you have any kind of
Yes.
standard practices?
Yes. There's no way that I would be showing up today if I didn't. So I have a few things that I have to do. I have to have some sort of exercise or activity in the morning. I have to have at least, 20 minutes of quiet time, meditation, prayer, or just breath work. Those two. And then you add on to it throughout the day. I have to hold myself accountable to take small breaks and do those same practices, whether it's going outside or, reading something inspiring. Young Pueblo is one of my favorite authors for just getting little bite-sized pieces of goodness. And I would say that is a part of every single day.
Mm. What about joy? How do you proactively get a little bit of joy in either your day or your week? What does that look like for you?
So I know I had said this. I feel like this grief journey feels like I lost my joy. And I want to clarify that you can only find joy within yourself. It was just that he brought so much of that joy out of me that
Yes.
I've had to now step back and teach myself how to bring that joy back. So big things for me are art. Like if I can just, get away and do some painting, spending time with people who inspire me, doing things that are different than what I normally do, exploring or doing something like a little adventure. That helps me find my own joy. And those things are important because you cannot rely on finding joy through other people.
Wow, that is incredible. Let's end with let's talk about Thomas one more time. And what is another thing about him that is kind of a legacy left behind with you that you'd like to carry forward? I believe everybody we meet, no matter how long they're in our lives or not, they leave a mark on us. And so, what is the mark that Thomas leaves within you?
So, there's a quote that I love. It's a heart that has been broken is a heart that's been loved. And Thomas taught me how to love again. And for that, that'll be a gift that stays with me forever.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I have loved our conversation so much. We have one more question, but before we get there, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you'd like to share with our listeners? And then also, how can folks connect with you and your work? We'll also share a bunch of links when we post the episode.
So I think one of the things that I'd want the readers to really take in is that being alone is a state of being and loneliness is a state of mind. And wisdom is knowing when you need support and asking others or allowing others to stand beside you. And a lot of times we think that we're in it alone. We have to face it alone. And the truth is that number one, loneliness is a mindset. And number two, find the courage to ask the people that you care about to surround you in those dark moments.
Yes, that is beautiful. I think we'll end on that with our final question. You might want to expand on that a little bit. We have listeners that right now might be in their messy middle or a rock bottom kind of place, feeling in the past, when you look back at yourself in those moments, is there a piece of advice that you wish would have come sooner?
100%. It's whenever you're in an unhealthy place or when you're in a bad relationship, all of those things, you need to create an exit strategy. And so knowing that an exit strategy can be created to leave a relationship, it also can help you to heal. What is my exit strategy once I process these emotions? What is my next plan? And creating a plan actually helps you visualize it, which helps you lead towards it in your healing process, whether it's a relationship, whether it's your own internal healing. Understand what your plan is and then start going towards it. Baby steps.
I love that. Just the idea of thinking of an after moment, I think, is so powerful. So thank you for that. Just thank you for being here. I so enjoy talking to you, and I'm glad our paths have crossed. To our listeners, if something in this episode spoke to you, here are just a few ways that you can bring some of this into your own life. First, just gently notice where you still might be hiding parts of yourself. Not with judgment, just with curiosity. Have some awareness of the things that you're holding inside. Second, practice telling the truth in small, safe ways, whether that's through journaling, whether that's through your closest friend who is not judgmental at all. Just begin building some trust with somebody who you can start talking to. And third, begin reframing your story. The things that you've been through are not disqualifiers, they are part of what makes you a powerful, compassionate, and uniquely you. So, thank you all for being here. Until next time, stay messy, my friends.